There. Good day to every one of you. Sorry for this weird gesture. I do not have a mic. I don't even have a projector, so I will only be here at the top right side of the screen, holding a mic, a mouthpiece. So I will be discussing to you about the pedigree analysis and the common patterns of inheritance in human. So first off, let us know what a pedigree is. So here, pedigrees are charts of family histories that show the phenotypes of family relationships and of the individuals, using symbols to represent different family members. So a pedigree can also be used for tracing generations and how illnesses are passed through generations and how illnesses branches from individual to individual. So the next slide is the legends used in pedigree analysis. So the first thing here is the legend for male. So the legend for the male is a box, a white box. Then in the female, there's this circle, and if male and female mates, there's this line between them, signifying the mating between the two. And if they had children, as you can see, the children may be a boy or a girl. So in the pedigree, the order of the birth is considered in the pedigree analysis. So these things are not very much used during our analysis though. So we wouldn't be using this and also this. So this is the affected individual's legend, having a dark shade inside the shape. So next is the heterozygote for autosomal recessive. Likewise, this one. So the legend for it is a half-shaded male, or the half-shaded male and half-shaded female. Here, the half-shaded box and half-shaded circle, letting us know that this one is a carrier of autosomal recessive traits. And then the next is the carrier of sex-linked recessive. Seeing here is a dot inside the circle. So being a carrier of sex-linked recessive trait is only seen by female genders. Yes, of course, it's a gender. So a slash in the object or in the shape means that person is already dead. And then as you can see here, this one has two lines between the gender, and this means that it is a consanguineous marriage, a marriage between close relatives, such as the mother, father, brother, sister, first to third degree cousins are considered consanguineous. So next is the common patterns of inheritance in humans. So the modes of inheritance, this designates whether the gene is carried on an autosome, non-sex chromosome, or the X chromosome. Very few genes are on the Y chromosome. So it also reveals whether the associated phenotype is recessive or dominant. As I have said earlier, or as you've read from the slide here, there are very few genes that are seen or that are present on the Y chromosome. So one of those genes found in Y chromosome is the SRY gene, or the sex-determining region Y. So the SRY protein starts the process that causes a fetus to develop testes and prevents development of female reproductive systems. So from the start, the fetus would automatically develop a female reproductive system. But with the presence of the SRY gene, it prevents the fetus to develop the female reproductive systems, and it helps develop the testes and the reproductive organs or systems of the male. So this is what will happen if the SRY gene mutates the Swyer syndrome, or the complete gonadal dysgenesis. So as you can see, the face is of a male. It looks like a man, but the physical appearance, the whole physical appearance of the person is of a female. So this condition affects the sexual development of a person. Mutations in SRY gene is responsible for this syndrome. So the next is the SHOX genes, SHOX gene, which is the short stature homeobox gene. So this SHOX gene acts during early embryonic development to control the formation of many body structures. It is essential for the development of the skeleton. Also, it plays an important role in growth and maturation of bones in arms and legs. So another complication in this gene is the Langer mesomelic dysplasia. So this is a disorder of bone growth, extreme shortening of the arms and the legs, or what we call mesomelia. So this is the effect of a mutated SHOX gene. Okay, so next here is the autosomal dominant inheritance. So the trait can appear in either sex because the gene is carried on an autosome. Since it is dominant, if a child has the trait, at least one parent must also have it. So in autosomal dominant inheritance, this inheritance doesn't skip generations. So if no offspring inherits the trait in one generation, its transmission stops because the offspring have only the recessive form of genes. So there are conditions where in autosomal dominance, in homozygous condition, can be lethal, and one of these is the when two mutant alleles is present, and it will be lethal, or it will result in non-viable fetus. So one of those complications is achondroplasia, a genetic condition that causes dwarfism and is always in heterozygous condition. If it is present in the homozygous condition, it can be lethal and results in non-viable fetus. So this is the Punnett square for analyzing dominant inheritance. So here as you can see, the father is affected, but it is heterozygous, and then the mother is normal with two recessive traits here. Then when they mate, as we can see, there are two offsprings that has the affected chromosome here. So because the autosome is dominant, that child will be affected. So one half of it is affected, and then the other half is not. So this is the pedigree chart for the autosomal dominant trait. So as we can see here, there is no skipping of generations. So from the first generation up to the fourth generation, each generation has affected, as you can see there, the dark shapes, they are the affected person with this autosomal dominant trait. So these are the common features of autosomal dominance. Okay, an affected offspring usually has one or both affected parents. Then the trait occurs with the same frequency in both sexes, so there is no exception. And then, as I have said a while ago, in some cases, a dominant allele may be lethal in homozygous condition. So, in this picture, this is caused by an autosomal dominant inherited trait known as the Pachyonychia congenita. So this is caused by a genetic mutation in 4 genes that encode keratin proteins specific to epithelial tissues. So this one is inherited via autosomal dominant inheritance. Next is the Marfan syndrome, or as you can see in the picture, the elongated fingers and toes, the super thin structure of the body, and if he stands properly, the height is abnormally tall. So Marfan syndrome is caused by mutation in FBN1 gene on chromosome 15. So this is also inherited by autosomal dominant inheritance. So next. Okay, so the next one is the autosomal recessive inheritance. 2 carrier in this state, heterozygous parents who do not have the trait typically are surprised to give birth to a child who does. So either sex can be affected because the gene controlling the trait, as I have said before, is on an autosome, but only individuals who inherit a recessive allele from each parent exhibit the trait because of the dominant variant would mask it. So as we can see here, the father is unaffected and is a carrier. Mother is unaffected as well, but is also a carrier. So as we can see here, this is a normal child. It doesn't carry the recessive traits found in his mother and father, but there are 2 children who is considered as a carrier child because their genes contain this affected gene or the recessive trait, and then this one is the affected one because this child unfortunately inherits the recessive trait that both his or her mother or father has. Okay, so next is the pedigree. So as you can see here, autosomal recessive inheritance jumps generations before it again occurs to the generation. So first generation, there is a affected one, and then the children became carriers of the trait. Then again, the grandchildren also carries the trait, and then on the 4th generation, we can see that the recessive trait has again popped from the children here at the 4th generation. So autosomal recessive inheritance manifests only when the mutant allele is present in double dose. So individuals that are heterozygous for such mutant alleles show no features of the disorder and are perfectly healthy, therefore they are called the carriers. Okay, so these are the common features of autosomal recessive inheritance. So first is frequently unaffected offspring will have 2 unaffected parents, and then also, yes, the trait occurs with the same frequency in both sexes, and two affected individuals will have 100% affected children. This observation can be made only when a recessive trait produces fertile, viable individuals. Okay. So before I tackle that certain disease, there is this what we call consanguinity, or when people that are related to each other had a child becomes will have relationship, builds a family, then creates a child. So the rarer a recessive trait or disorder, the greater the frequency of consanguinity among parents of affected individuals. So here, this is the galactosemia, which is a condition in which the body is unable to process galactose, the sugar present in milk. So accumulation of excessive galactose in the body can cause many problems, including liver damage, brain damage, and cataract. So it enables infants, yes, to metabolize galactose. This is inherited through autosomal recessive inheritance. And then next is the cystic fibrosis. Yeah, this is it. Cystic fibrosis, a chronic respiratory infection and malabsorption, where the attack gene here is localized at chromosome 7q. So in the picture, this is the normal airway wall with a thin layer of mucus. So in an affected airway, we can see bacterial infection, thick mucus that blocks the airway, and blood in the mucus. Next is the sex-linked inheritance. So we're near the end because it's already the sex-linked inheritance. So this one refers to the patterns of inheritance shown by genes that are located on either of the sex chromosomes. So a while ago we were discussing about the autosomal inheritance, wherein the trait is located on the autosome. Now we are discussing about traits that are located on either of the sex chromosomes. So genes carried on the X chromosome are referred to as X-linked, and those carried on the Y chromosome are referred to as exhibiting Y-linked or Hollandic inheritance. Okay, next. So X-linked recessive inheritance. So an X-linked recessive inheritance is one determined by a gene carried on the X chromosome and usually manifests only in males. So a male cannot transmit an X-linked trait to his son, with the very rare exception of uniparental heterodisomy. Okay, so diseases inherited in an X-linked manner are transmitted by healthy heterozygous female carriers to affected males, as well as by affected males to their obligate carrier daughters, with a consequent risk to male grandchildren. So in this slide we have passed the term uniparental heterodisomy. So if the individual inherits two different homologs from one parent through error in meiosis. So this is the Punnett square on how X-linked recessive inheritance work. So the male here. Okay, so as you can see here, an affected male was able to reproduce with a normal female. So as you can see, the daughters here are the carriers of this disease, and then there are only normal sons. But when the carrier daughters already have their own children, Then the male here is they are generally affected by the traits. And then this is a color blindness X-linked recessive. So as you can see in the pedigree, likewise the autosomal recessive inheritance, it also skips generations and then will be brought up again on the next generation. So first generation has it, then the second generation doesn't have it, and then the third generation did have it, for it being a recessive trait. So grandfather to grandson transmission through females. Okay, so next, common features of X-linked recessive inheritance. The trait or disorder should affect males almost exclusively. Male-to-male transmission is not observed, and disorders are transmitted through unaffected carrier females to their sons. Affected males, if they survive to reproduce, can have affected grandsons through their daughters who are obligate carriers. So this one is this is the Duchenne muscular dystrophy, wherein the body tends to become, just like the picture, it's almost crumpled there, cannot walk. And the early signs of it is when a child cannot get up normally, wherein he needs to push himself up, uses his knees. This is characteristically, child arises from prone position by pushing himself up with hands successively on floor, knees, and thighs because of weakness in gluteal and spinal muscles. He stands in a lordotic posture, which, as you can see, the posture is not straight. It's like an S there, with the stomach almost protruding forward, and the bottom part is protruding backwards. So next, X-linked dominant inheritance. These are the disorders that manifest in heterozygous female as well as in the male who has the mutant allele on his single X chromosome. So males and females affected, but often an excess of females. And then females less severely affected than males. So an affected male transmits the trait to all his daughters, but to none of his sons. So there, as you can see, the Punnett square to realize how X-linked dominant inheritance happens. So this is a normal female and an affected male. So his son will be normal here, like there, yes. And then the daughter will be affected because the trait is dominant. Here, this trait is from the affected male, whereas these normal traits are from the mother. So it explains why in X-linked dominant inheritance, the son never gets to inherit the trait from the father. Okay, so being a dominant inheritance, it also doesn't skip generations. So every generation has it, and if one generation is not seen with that type of trait, then most probably that the generation only inherited the recessive alleles from the parents. Okay, so common features of X-linked dominant inheritance: males and females are affected, but affected females are more frequent than affected males. Females are less severely affected, and although affected females can transmit the disorder to both male and female offspring, affected males can transmit the disorder only to their daughters. Okay, so one of the X-linked dominant inheritance is the Rett syndrome. It is like the counterpart of Duchenne muscular dystrophy in males, as you can see here. So Rett syndrome symptoms, they have sleep disorders, breath holding or the apnea, dystonia, motor problems, difficulties with ablution, hand wringing, grasping, mouthing, clapping or tapping, severe apraxia or being nearly all girls non-speaking, and then sensory and autonomic dysregulation, and many more. Okay, so this picture is an example of Lujan-Frinz syndrome, also an X-linked dominant inheritance. Yeah, so in here we can see that the eyes, the other half of the eyes is it doesn't look normal here, and then the nose is separated by a cleft here. Okay, you can see here, and then the chin is much more elongated. Well, we can compare these two twins. This one is a normal twin, and this one is affected with Lujan-Frinz syndrome. So you can see the eyes, it is also affected. The nose has its cleft somewhere there, and then the chin is elongated. Okay, so sex influence traits are traits where an allele is dominant in one sex but recessive in the opposite sex. So sex influence doesn't mean sex-linked. Sex-linked influence traits are autosomal. So this is the pattern baldness that is mostly present in males. You can say this, the process of the baldness of males throughout their lifespan. Okay, so thank you for listening. Bye bye.